Right, good morning everybody. My name's Andrew Craig from VisitScotland and welcome to this, I think we're now on the 5th in a series of webinars that are being delivered by VisitScotland in conjunction with Business Gateway's Digital Boost programme and part of a programme, a recovery package of webinars aimed at supporting tourism businesses as they reopen. On today's webinar, which is entitled Search Engine Optimization for Tourism Businesses, Part 1, very exciting title. Today we're joined by Gary Ennis from NS Design in Glasgow. That's a company that specialises in social media and digital skills training. And Gary will be leading two sessions on SEO, Search Engine Optimization, one today, and then a part 2 on August the 4th at 11:30 on August the 4th. So you can sign up, details and it will be later on, but you can sign up for that on the Business Gateway website, on the event section of the Business Gateway website. Just a quick reminder that all attendees are, you're all in microphone off and webcam off mode so that you can only see Gary and I today. We'll be distributing a link to the PDF slides presentation at the end of the webinar, as well as asking for your feedback via a link that we'll distribute via the chat in due course, and it'll be on the screen as well. If you do have any queries about any aspects of search engine optimization today, please ask them via the questions tab that you'll see in your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll spend 10 to 15 minutes at the end. So remember, this is a 90-minute session, so around about 12:15 Gary will come to a close, and we'll spend 10 to 15 minutes at the end discussing those questions. We're also going to be running a couple of polls today at different various points throughout today's session, and Gary will introduce them and I'll bring them up on the screen in due course again. And then finally, we are once again offering the opportunity to participate in a free Visit Scotland digital review with one of our industry relationship managers. The only caveat I would put there is that it's free for tourism businesses. You need to be a tourism business to participate in one of these Visit Scotland digital reviews. And these reviews are designed to assess elements of your digital output, including, I suppose, and not limited to, your social media presence, online bookings, your presence on search engines, and your overall website performance as well. So there'll be an opportunity at the end. As soon as you leave today's webinar, there'll be a little pop-up message that appears on the screen asking if you'd like to participate in a free digital review. If you've been on our previous webinars and have already signed up, you don't need to sign up again. We have your details and you'll be contacted over the forthcoming weeks and probably months. There's quite a number of you have signed up for them, so you will be contacted by one of the industry relationship managers to organise that digital review. If you haven't yet signed up though, simply tick the little box that says yes, I agree to participate in a Visit Scotland digital review. So that'll appear once we finish the session today. There will also be an opportunity to sign up if you miss it today in the post-webinar email that will go out tomorrow morning, so you'll have another chance if you miss signing up today. And then before I hand over to Gary, just a screenshot of the Digital Boost homepage. This programme, as a quick reminder, delivers a lot of free services, including up to 21 hours of one-to-one specialist digital support, a number of workshops, including SEO Part 2, and webinars. At the moment, you can go and make a booking. Business Gateway, bgateway.com/digital boost is the address to go to. And as well as that, online guides on 21 digital topics and a number of video tutorials on digital topics as well. So without any further ado, enough from me, I'll pass things over to Gary, who is here today representing NS Design, and he's going to lead today's session. So Gary, I'll just make sure that you can present your screen.
Thank you.
Over you now, and I'll switch my own webcam off until you've finished your presentation for today. Thanks, Gary.
Great. Can you just confirm you're seeing the agenda screen at the moment, Andrew? Hopefully everyone else is as well.
Yeah, that
Great.
looks good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Andrew, for the introduction there. I do a lot of digital booth sessions. I'm very much looking forward to doing this one, and of course next week's session as well. Hopefully you're all booked up for session 2. Certainly by the end of session 1, I hope I've not put you off booking up for session 2. I'm sure I won't. Today's agenda is quite simple. We're going to talk search engine optimization. Primarily, we're going to introduce the topic of SEO, search engine optimization. Never good to use a jargon and acronyms on their own without quickly explaining what they mean, just in case people don't know. We'll talk about why SEO matters. We'll look at some of the tools and systems available to help you, specifically around carrying out what we call keyword research and being aware of what these words and phrases that we will need to optimize for. We'll get to all of that good stuff very, very quickly. And then, of course, how to actually make some changes to your website to be better featured and be ranking higher on Google itself. There'll be a couple of wee polls just to get you interacting with me as we go, and also, as Andrew has already said, if there are any questions, feel free to ask these in the questions section of GoToWebinar, and Andrew will flag these up to me, and we'll either deal with them as we go if we've got the time, or indeed we will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end as well. Okay, what is SEO? Well, first of all, on a kind of technical level, there are various different types of SEO. Some of these you'll have heard of, some of these maybe not. The big one we're going to talk about today, the main focus of today's webinar, on-page SEO, and that really means the changes you can make on your individual pages. What you can do, tweaks and changes, content updates, keywords, etc. on the website itself. Next week, we will be looking at most of the other aspects of SEO, the off-page, backlinks, technical, local, mobile side of SEO. But today, we're starting with where we should start, because it arguably is the kind of foundation of SEO, which is the tweaks and changes you can make on your own website to get your website ranking higher. Here is the very dull, boring Wikipedia definition of search engine optimization. They say it's the process of improving the quality and quantity of website traffic to a website or a web page from search engines. SEO targets the unpaid traffic. Today we're not going to talk about the paid side of it. We're going to talk about the organic side of it, the natural organic results, rather than the direct or paid traffic. So that's the kind of Wikipedia definition. I prefer to supplement it with my own, in other words. So for me, SEO is about convincing Google to return our websites higher in the rankings when target customers search for things relevant to our business. Why? So that we get more clicks for free, meaning the possibility of increased revenue, increased business, increased bookings, whatever it is we're actually trying to achieve. Now, before I move on from this particular slide, let me just labour the point a little bit. It's about convincing Google to get our website higher when the right customers search for the right things which benefit our businesses. It's actually dead easy to be top of Google for the wrong things. And this is just my cue to kind of give you all a warning, and I'm sure none of you would, but run a mile from any of those emails that promise you top of Google for £50. I always jokingly say I'll get you to the top of Google for £5, but it'll be, you know, for the wrong words, for the wrong phrases, for the wrong type of customers, for the wrong audience, which doesn't actually do your business any good. So it's important that we very much focus on you, your business, your customer, their behavior. What are they looking for? That's the benefit of search engine optimization. The right customers, the right relevant products and services, and the right level of increased business that comes hopefully as a result. Again, I'll kind of keep harking back to that a little bit as we go through the session. You've probably heard me say in the last slides already that it's a Google. I keep mentioning Google rather than just saying generic search engine. And we say Google for a reason, and that simply is because they have the share, they have the market share of the search engines quite significantly. If you are in the UK, then Google currently have nearly 93% of the market. While some of you guys may be using Bing or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo, and if you're not familiar with what DuckDuckGo is and I've never heard of it, then do some reading. Actually, a very good search engine. But while you may use another platform, what we need to always remember when it comes to search engine is think like the customer. So while you might be a Bing user, the chances are they will be a Google user. Google has all the people. Google is where the search engine activity happens, and that's not just in the UK. As per the graph on the right of the screen, that is very much across the board, across the world. Where pretty much every country in the world, bar Russia and China, Russia just under half using Google, China hardly any using Google, and that's because arguably in both these countries, especially China, Google is banned. So again, the good news is if you are targeting foreign traffic, visitors from abroad, as many businesses in the tourism, travel, hospitality, food and drink, as many businesses in tourism do, then good news is Google is still the place you need to focus on, albeit maybe we're not quite attracting quite so many visitors right now from abroad, given that horrible thing that shall not be named. I'll probably name it later on. Okay, if you did need a few more Google statistics, just very quickly, and again, I'm not going to read out all 9 of these bullet points. You can do that yourself. We've got lots more that I want to get on with, get to the good stuff. 3.5 billion Google searches made every day. 93% of all online experiences begin with Google. 81% of people performing some sort of Google type search before making a large purchase. And I would certainly include most purchases in the world of travel and activity booking and things to do with the family this weekend as potentially large important purchases. So very much Google playing a role there. 35% of product searches may be relevant to some of you. Let me just jump down to point 6. 75% of people never scrolling past the first page, hence why it's so critical to know about optimization, to know how to begin to optimize, to start creeping up these pages, depending on where you are right now. There's a very bad, notice I'm putting in my disclaimer straight away, there's a very bad joke in my geeky industry that basically says, where do you hide the dead bodies? Page 2 of Google. I did warn you it was a bad one, my apologies. So again, it's important that we get as high up these rankings as possible. Point 7 is an interesting one. We're now 6 years beyond the point of when mobile searches overtook desktop searches. That's important. We'll come back to that certainly more next week. As of today, point 8, 54% of web usage carried out on a mobile. Now here's the thing, 54% on average people using their mobile to use Google and to search for things compared to their desktop. That differs in different sectors, different industries, different stages of what we call the user journey. So if I am out visiting, if I'm on location, if I've booked a holiday, if I'm at the destination and I'm thinking of something to do, to find the activity, to go paddleboarding, to a day out with the family, most of that will be happening on a mobile. That's making a cue back to some of the previous webinars that Visit Scotland and Digital Boost have organised over the last few weeks for you. There was a session done just recently on analytics by the wonderful Brian Tate, and you guys should know, because you should be looking at your Google Analytics, what percentage of mobile visitors do you have? Because it's critical in your thinking, critical in terms of your website in the first place, and how people search for things when they're on their mobile, when they're out and about, compared to when they're at the research stage of the kind of sitting at their desk thinking about what they might like to do. Well, I'm here, I'm ready to do it, and we need to adapt our websites accordingly. And we'll get to more of that shortly. Okay, let's move on and answer this big question, which I still get asked these days. You know, I keep mentioning optimizing the website. Do we even need a website? I get asked this still a lot by especially small businesses, especially startup businesses. Do I need a website, Gary? I've got my Facebook, we've got loads of engagement there. We put videos onto YouTube. We do fun stuff on Instagram. Do I even need a website? I would categorically say absolutely. Your website is the home of your content. Other platforms, Facebook is not yours, Instagram is not yours, your website arguably is yours. So you're in control of it, you control what goes on it, the information you choose to put there, not what is dictated by Facebook and its algorithms, etc. You could fall foul of Facebook tomorrow. You probably won't, and hopefully it never happens, but I know plenty of businesses where it has, who suddenly suspend your page and your whole internet presence, if it was based on something just like Facebook, now at risk. And the last thing I'll say, especially with regard to the SEO side of all of this, Google would rather link to you than link to Facebook or Instagram or any of these types of platforms. Google prefers to return back independent websites, not big bad Mark Zuckerberg platforms. And I joke when I say that, but Google and Facebook hate each other with a passion. They are not the best of friends. So Google it wants to be a platform to give customers direct access to you. And that's why ultimately you still need a website. It needs to be optimized. You need to be climbing the Google ranks, and it will help drive business for you, for your product, for your services, for your bookings, for whatever it is you're trying to do. So the main thing we're going to talk about in detail today is this concept of on-page optimization, and by that we mean the keywords. What do I mean by keywords? Well, the first thing I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to get you to watch a little video, and I'm going to play this through the webinar. But what I will say is, because webinar videos are sometimes a little bit buffery, I don't know if that's technically a word, but we'll run with it, a little bit clunky, sometimes the audio lags and that type of thing, and depends on your bandwidth, my bandwidth. If this video for whatever reason isn't exactly the clearest, I'll paste in the link to this video into the chat box just at the end of it, so bear with it, give it a watch. We're going to talk just about a couple of things about this video. I'm not going to play you the full 5 minutes, by the way, don't worry, but I want you to hear from Google themselves, you know, how Google works.
Every day, billions of people come here with questions about all kinds of things. Sometimes we even get questions about Google search itself, like how this whole thing actually works. And while this is a subject entire books have been written about, there's a good chance you're in the market for something a little more concise. So let's say it's getting close to dinner and you want a recipe for lasagna. You've probably seen this before, but let's go a little deeper. Since the beginning, back when the homepage looked like this, Google has been continuously mapping the web, hundreds of billions of pages, to create something called an index. Think of it as the giant library we look through whenever you do a search for lasagna or anything else. Now, the word lasagna shows up a lot on the web. Pages about the history of lasagna, articles by scientists whose last name happened to be lasagna, stuff other people might be looking for. But if you're hungry, randomly clicking through millions of links is no fun. This is where Google's ranking algorithms come into play. First, they try to understand what you're looking for, so they can be helpful even if you don't know exactly the right words to use or if your spelling is a little off. Then they sift through millions of possible matches in the index and automatically assemble a page that tries to put the most relevant information up top for you to choose from. Okay, now we have some results. But how did the algorithms actually decide what made it onto the first page? There are hundreds of factors that go into ranking search results, so let's talk about a few of them. You may already know that pages containing the words you search for are more likely to end up at the top. No surprise there. But the location of those words, like in the page's title or in an image's caption, those are factors too. There's a lot more to ranking than just words. Back when Google got started, we looked at how pages linked to each other to better understand what pages were about and how important and trustworthy they seemed. Today, linking is still an important factor. Another factor is location, where a search happens. Because if you happen to be in Ormea, Italy, you might be looking for information about their annual lasagna festival. But if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, you probably aren't. When a web page was uploaded is an important factor too. Pages published more recently often have more accurate information, especially in the case of a rapidly developing news story. Of course, not every site on the web is trying to be helpful. Just like with robocalls on your phone or spam in your email, there are a lot of sites that only exist to scam, and every day scammers upload millions more of them. So just because instantvirusdownload.net lists the words lasagna recipe 400 times, that doesn't mean it's going to help you make dinner. We spend a lot of time trying to stay one step ahead of tricks like these, making sure our algorithms can recognize scam sites and flag them before they make it to your search results page. So let's review. Billions of times a day, whenever someone searches for lasagna, or resume writing tips, or how to swaddle a baby, or anything else, Google software locates all the potentially relevant results on the web, removes all the spam, and ranks them based on hundreds of factors like keywords, links, location, and freshness. Okay, good time to take a breath.
Right, I'm going to pause it there because it is, as they say, indeed a good time to take a breath.
This last part is about how we make changes to search.
It's off and running. There we go. Okay, what I'm going to quickly do, just in case you want to revisit that, watch that in your own time, and if it was just a little bit on the low quality, depending on your own internet speeds and all the rest of it, there is me pasting in the link into the chat box. So you can feel free to click that, bookmark it, watch it later on if it helps. And I do recommend you watch the remainder of the video. Cracking little video from the word of Google themselves. How does Google work? And just to recap a little bit on what they talked about there, she said there are hundreds of factors about how Google rank you, including keywords, the main thing we're going to talk about today, links, location, freshness. Again, some of these other things we will talk about going forward and into next week as well. So keywords, the things people search for. What is a keyword? Examples being Scottish tour, tour of Scottish gin distilleries, 10 most famous historical tours of Scotland, Scottish tours near me. These are all examples of what somebody might stick into a Google search. And all we mean when we say the word keyword is we mean the word or phrase which somebody has searched for. When somebody sits down in front of Google and types it in, those are what we call the keywords. What we then do is take those keywords and optimize our web pages for them. Let's get those keywords onto our pages. We'll come to the detail of that shortly. Again, as per the words of Google, it's no surprise that websites containing some of the words and phrases used by the person searching appear higher in the results. Now, again, while we might say keyword or keyword plural, it can mean singular, it can mean multiple words, it can mean a phrase. It doesn't really matter. So the thing to remember, especially when it comes to the world of tourism, often, on other Digital Boost webinars, I will talk about the customer journey. Ironically, the journey when it comes to tourism, yes, it's kind of conceptual and it's on digital, and it's also an actual journey as they come and visit you, partake in your activities. So when it comes to the journey, we need to think about what stages do they take in the journey. Now, this slide here is a little bit wordy, and I won't read it out word for word. And a little reminder, you will get a link to all of these slides later on. I urge you to take more time going through them. An awful lot of them have links to additional valuable content that we are suggesting you read. This one in particular takes you to an article in Visit Scotland, which is very much about the customer journey process. But in summary, they start at the top where they're dreaming of somewhere to go on holiday. Now, this is quite a specific example, but play along. I then go into the planning mode where I think about various options. What could I do? Should I go on an adventure holiday? Should I go on a relaxing holiday? Should I stay at home? Should I go abroad? What are the COVID restrictions, etc.? So we go through a whole period of dreaming and then planning in a little bit more detail, each time getting further down that journey. I then kind of almost narrow it down to some decisions, right? I'm going on an adventure activity up in the north of Scotland. I then begin the booking process. I think about booking. I think about booking the accommodation, the how am I getting there, the bus, the plane, and then once I'm actually on site, on location, and there, I'm still on part of a research journey. Okay, what can I do today? Maybe I've booked it in advance, maybe I haven't, maybe tomorrow is raining, so my plans are up the spout. So I'm now looking to book different activities and experiences while I'm there. Also, while I'm there, I'm loving it. I'm taking pictures, I'm sharing them, I'm doing my social media. A lot of the things that I know maybe Rennie spoke to you about, again, all of the previous Visit Scotland webinars have all been recorded. You can revisit these later on if you didn't get a chance to see them live. Rennie Looper was speaking about the value of social media and how other people will say great things about you if you treat them well on this journey. So the point of search engine optimization and the journey is that they search for different things depending on where they are in this journey. And the thing that we maybe need to keep in mind more than ever, that we maybe didn't need to do a couple of years ago, regrettably but true, we now need to consider the impact of COVID. Different people have different concerns. Yes, hopefully we're seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. many of us now going or gone to level 0, but it's still there. It's still very much the elephant in the room. Some people are concerned. Some people want to know what you are doing in terms of your cleanliness routine for your small B&B. Some people want to know what you're doing in terms of social distancing and limiting numbers, in terms of your paddleboarding activities. So we need to better understand customer behavior. Listen, that is the core to SEO, full stop, at the best of times, but now especially. And again, I would point you to the really wonderful resource on the Visit Scotland website, which really breaks down the kind of different customer segments based on attitude to COVID. And the point is, if you're not aware of these attitudes, you might not be putting any content out there on your web pages, on your social, kind of responding to and resolving and answering some of their questions. They might not ask directly, but they're thinking about it, they're worried about it, they're searching for it. I will show you some of this live very shortly. So we need to understand our customer behavior, the stage they are at in the journey, and then we actually just answer 3 simple questions. Okay, SEO is actually quite simple. Question number 1. Who am I targeting? My business. Who is the best typical customer for me? Who is my target market? And which stage of the customer journey are they at? Now, they might be at various stages at any and all times, but let's take them one by one. Okay, I'm targeting that type of customer at the very start of their journey, the dreaming stage, the thinking about a relaxing family summer holiday because we're all overdue one, etc. Okay, knowing that, question 2. What words and phrases, which keywords are they going to search for in Google, or might they likely search for in Google to achieve what they are trying to do? At this stage, they're just dreaming, they're just thinking about options. Further down the journey, they're actually thinking about booking, they're thinking about COVID, they're thinking more specifically, but at this early stage, they're dreaming. And now that I've worked out or considered what some other words and phrases might be, I ask myself question number 3, the important one: are these words even on my website? If Google, and Google said this to you earlier on, the premise of SEO at a base level, the words they are using, are they on your website? And if they are, Google maybe gives your website back to them to consider. If they're not, you might have to work incredibly hard to get any chance of appearing on the Google results, or maybe never appearing there at all. So who are the customer? What words are they going to be using? And are those words on your website? It's not actually rocket science. This is what we call keyword authority, and I've chucked this onto the slides just in case you hear this elsewhere, because it's often used in the kind of SEO industry, you know, having authority. And all that really means is, does Google think that you are about the thing they are searching for? Okay, so they've typed something in. Google says, do you have authority? Are you about that thing, that topic, that location, that activity? Those words they used, are you about them? And it basically says, are you about them? Do we know this? Because those words are there. So again, a wee reminder, we'll often hear words like short tail keywords. These are kind of short, snappy keywords. Scottish tour. Holiday hotels. Now again, very few people are using short tail keywords because they know that they get an awful lot of results back. What they tend to do more of is search for longer tail keywords. So tour of Scottish gin distilleries is a longer tail, a little bit more specific, results in less results come back because there's more intent, there's more kind of specific nature behind it. If they're maybe looking for Visitor's Guide to Edinburgh Tours, then they're maybe looking for a very specific thing, a product or a service. And again, Google tries to work out the intent behind what they're searching for. And a lot of these searches, we will come back to this next week, I promise, is the whole geography, the geolocation side of it, the near me type search, and how Google starts to dictate whether you are near them or not. But again, we'll come more to that later on. So let's go back to this customer journey. Let's get back to some of the longer tail keywords that they might actually search for. And again, at an early stage, they might be shorter, just testing the water, trying a number of things, considerations. as they go into the customer journey. They start going into the consideration phase. They're now looking at, you know, options. Could I go on an outdoor activity holiday? Should I do a relaxing beach break? Should I do a staycation? And they go through these kind of periods of these kind of circles of discovery, circles of research. Again, there's a link to the illustration on the right of the screen right now. I urge you to click that one later on. It's a lovely article on customer journey in the digital world. And then ultimately they go through purchase and come out of that into post-purchase. However, let's look at some of these potential customer searches, and in particular, let me show you a business. The irony here is a really great business. I've seen Unicorn Paddle, I've experienced them, I've heard other people talk about them. Let me do this live actually. Let me just bring up Unicorn Paddle in my browser, bear with me. And let me just show you what, again, without kind of giving the game away, where it can all go wrong with search engine optimization. So, early awareness. Customer decides, I want a holiday in Scotland. Okay, I don't know what holiday in Scotland I'm thinking about right now, but I'm doing some of that dreaming and I'm seeing what comes up to kind of spur on some other ideas. I then get further into my train of thought and I think, right, you know what, I want something fun. So I'm now going to search fun outdoor activities in Scotland. There's maybe my early consideration type of search, a loose idea of details, not specific yet. I'm still researching. I'm then further down that customer journey. And I'm almost decided what I'm looking for, what will be best for me and the family. I'm now looking for water sports activities in the Scottish Highlands. Haven't decided where I want to go. I just know I want it to be in Scotland, up somewhere in the Highlands. And okay, I'm almost ready. I've pretty much narrowed it down. I'm almost good to go. I am now looking for beginner paddle boarding Loch Lomond. Maybe that's the focus of the whole holiday, or maybe that's just something I want to do while I'm there. So there are some typical searches, and you need to do exactly this for your business. What are the typical searches, the keywords, the phrases that a customer of yours might search for at the different stages of the customer journey? So let's go and look at Unicorn Paddle. Now, again, I always feel a little bit bad. I'll before I do this little demo, I will repeat that these guys are a great business. They're simply missing out on potential traffic through Google because of maybe not being as optimized as they could be. I'm going to introduce the simplest way to start checking your website for particular content, and that's to do the Control F. If you bring up any website, including your own, Control F just brings up the find box. Okay, it's what you'll get on a Word document or on a web browser. It just brings up the find box. And if I search Unicorn Paddle's homepage for the word holiday, as you can maybe hear by my speakers going bing, 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 0 mentions of holiday. This business, which specializes in activities for maybe people on holiday, probably a good chunk of their audience, and it doesn't mention the word holiday. Surely it mentions the word Scotland. Now, yes, it does, but it only mentions it twice. Now, we'll come to this again in a wee bit more detail in a minute. If you are truly about something, you might want to try and strategically mention it a little bit more than once or twice. Now, don't keyword stuff it in there. Don't have Scotland mentioned 26 times. We'll come to that later on. That's a no-no. But if you naturally are truly about something, if Google says, oh, you have very much have some authority for some of these words and phrases, it's usually because you're about them and you talk about them. They only mention Scotland twice. What about the word fun? It's mentioned twice. Great. Okay. What about outdoor? The word outdoor isn't mentioned at all. What about activity? Activity is mentioned twice. What about water sports? Well, the word water isn't there, so the phrase water sports isn't going to be there. And I thought, you know, paddling, paddle boarding. Well, surely that's you know, the kind of categorization of that before we get to the deep water sports. What about the Highlands? Well, maybe not. Maybe they don't deliver in the Highlands. Maybe that's a little bit unfair. But the big one I want to just make the point on. Paddle boarding, paddle boarding isn't there at all as a phrase. Now, this company specializes in paddle boarding, but what I'd like to flag up really for the benefit of all of you to go and be critical about your own websites and how you do things. One of the things they do have is SUP mentioned 11 times, SUP. Now, if I truly am a beginner paddleboarder, do I really know that it's called SUP? SUP is the kind of jargon, it's the industry term, it's the acronym, it's the thing that maybe not everyone knows it's called that. That's what you call it. And if I'm coming along and I'm looking for beginner's not mentioned, lessons is mentioned 5 times. They actually do specialize in beginner paddleboarding lessons, but because paddleboarding isn't there, because they go with SUP multiple times, they're maybe only ever attracting the people who know that that's what it's called. Listen, when I get into my paddleboarding, when I get good at it, when I begin to love it, maybe I'll call it SUP as well. But for now, there's a real danger that we only think in terms of what we call it, not what the customers call it. So there's, again, just a very quick practical example of unicorn paddle, and maybe missing out on quite a lot of customers at different stages in the journey because simply the words aren't there. We're not thinking about them and the words they use. I hope this is all making sense. I hope this is all resonating. I hope this is already getting you thinking about your own websites and what you're doing on them. Let me move on and talk about, okay, if the right words are so important, well, where do we find all of these words? Where do we get confirmation of which keywords we should be using? Because otherwise we just make assumptions, and business owners making assumptions is sometimes a very dangerous thing to do. If you get the keywords right, if you work out what your customers are indeed searching for, you'll get more of that right customer onto your website who will hopefully convert, do the thing you want them to do. Get it wrong, maybe they're never finding you. Maybe the wrong customers are finding you, and that's certainly not going to lead to the potential of increased traffic, visitors, bookings, etc. So we're going to do our
Gary, just a quick question.
Please, yeah, absolutely, Andrew.
There's a question somebody's asked, and I thought it was pertinent probably to bring up just now. Somebody said, are capital letters important when searching? Do searches within inverted commas come up with different results?
Okay, good question. Somebody who clearly knows a little bit about the kind of more geeky or technical side of Google. First of all, capitals don't make any difference, okay? Google pretty much matches content, whether it's capitalized or not, really doesn't make much difference at all. In terms of using quotes around things, you know, the kind of, and you can even go further, you can be very geeky and you can start doing what's called Boolean searches, which is ands and ors or whatever. But if you put a quote around a phrase, Google is trying to match that exact phrase. So if I just did a Google search as a user, as a consumer, for holiday in Scotland, in theory, now it wouldn't do this because Google's far more smarter, but in theory, it could match content for holidays in Scotland. It could also match holiday content for anything to do with the word holiday. It could also match content for anything simply to do with the word Scotland, whether it's a holiday or not. Now, it's not going to do that because it looks at the whole thing. But if you want to guarantee a phrase gets a better match, then if you put the actual phrase in quotes, or you put the plus symbol before some of those words, it guarantees that it matches against those things. So yeah, good geeky question there. I like that. We're getting into the kind of right technical side of Google. For the majority, again, while some of us might do that, again, I would stress, and I mean no disrespect to the general public, the majority of the general public just do basic searches. They just stick in the words that come to mind, the phrase that comes to mind. And again, depending on where in that customer journey they are. Okay, I hope I've answered that well enough for whoever asked the question. We're going to move on and do a poll. Actually, we're going to get more of you engaging with us here. I've just mentioned we're about to carry out some keyword research, and I'm going to show you some tools that allow you to do that, prove what words people use. We're currently running a poll, and we're asking you a question. Do you currently carry out any keyword research? And if you do, I'd like you to say yes and choose the tool that you are currently using. We've got a few to choose from there: Google Keyword Planner, SEMrush, Ubersuggest. And if you don't, click no. And if you're using one of the tool, a tool that isn't mentioned, just say yes, I do, but I use a tool not listed. Okay, I'm seeing the results coming in right now. I'll let this run for just another 10 seconds or so. On the whole, and no surprise, no surprise because, well, hey, you turned up on today's webinar, you know that you're looking to do better when it comes to SEO. So most of you saying, yeah, I think if we just display those results now, hopefully you can all see that. I'll certainly tell you what they are. Most of you saying no, 77% of you saying no. So keyword research, among most of you, not something you do. Okay, for those of you who are doing it, what did we get? We got 7% saying Google Keyword Planner, 5% saying SEMrush, 7% saying Ubersuggest, and 12% saying another tool. And apologies we weren't able to list every eventuality there. Now, the good news is I will introduce Keyword Planner and Ubersuggest to all of you in just a second. But the point is, good that most of you will gain benefit from really better understanding keyword research and why it's important. Okay, let's move on. Let's do some actual keyword research. Let me show you some of this. This is all about proving what your customer said. If you can prove the words and phrases which are actually searched for by your typical customer, then you can take these words and phrases and optimize better for them. We'll get to that part shortly. Let's just spend another 20 or so minutes talking about keyword research. I'm going to start with the simplest way to do it, and it really is painfully simple, but it's a fun one I like to demonstrate. I'm going to bring up a Google Incognito browser here. Bear with me. Google Incognito, some of you will be familiar with. It basically kind of logs you out of Google. It doesn't kind of use any of your previous searches. I won't go down the route of why some people use Google Incognito. That would be highly inappropriate today. But for these purposes, it's really valuable because the problem is when you are on Google, Google knows it's you. So the results are always tailored and tweaked towards you. So if you go incognito, it makes it a little bit kind of more what the general public would see. So the first one I want to talk about is Google's auto predict feature. When you start typing something into Google, you will know that Google starts to predict things. So if I simply go and search for, you know what, let me just do COVID, then look what Google is suggesting. The most commonly searched for stuff around COVID is COVID vaccine, COVID symptoms, COVID vaccine booking, COVID cases. These are the kind of, this is Google hinting to you at what people are actually searching for. So you can simply start typing something related to your business and it will auto-complete, giving you ideas for these are maybe the words and phrases I should be using, not because they're random, because people are currently searching for them. These are live Google predictive results based on actual user behavior. So let me just do what'll I do? I'll do hotel. Let me just do hotel in Scotland with, okay. What comes up? Well, we get pool, hot tub, spa, balcony. Let me show you what I call a Google alphabet search in terms of your keyword research. You just start a phrase and then you finish it with A, spa are open, B, balcony, beer taps in the room. Wow, clearly people looking for a good holiday right now. C, castle, interesting. D, dog friendly. E, Edinburgh, clearly a kind of hot destination right now. F, for sale, random. G, golf. H, hot tub. You know, right now, if you are indeed in the accommodation world, I urge you all to promote your hot tubs if you have them, because believe me, hot tub searching is rife right now. Why? Who knows? But this is based on actual data. I, J, jacuzzi, L, luxury, M, N, O. You can start to do a predictive kind of alphabet search. Listen, don't just go, all right, let's get all of these words onto my website, which is what we're going to come to shortly. This is just influence. This is just ideas. This is just a nice starting point using Google autofill, auto predict, and playing with what are the top searches. Could you then start using some of that as content on your website? because this is Google telling you this is what people search for. Now, let's move on to the second research tool. That first one, just a nice beginner tool to play with, dead easy. Be influenced yourself every time you use Google about what it's suggesting to you. Let me show you Keyword Planner. Now, I'm already logged into this, so let me just very quickly bring this over onto the main screen. Bear with. Doing all these live demos always seems like a good idea. Right, so this is what Google Keyword Planner looks like. Now, I will warn you, it is part of Google AdWords. So Google AdWords being the paid side of running Google adverts. To use Google Keyword Planner, you will need a Google Ads account. Unfortunately, that does mean logging a credit card against it and setting the thing up. You don't actually need to go ahead and run any ads, but you will need to kind of almost have done that, get, setting things up so that you can actually use the free, once you're there, keyword planning tool. And as per the poll, many of you already use this, so some of you know exactly what this does. Let me just show you. You can, again, there's the slides that we have available for you later on, give you detailed instructions about doing all of this. I'd rather just show you as a live demo. We can click into Discover New Keywords. And there's two ways to do it. You can either start with some initial keywords. So you might go, right, I am a wee B&B holiday rental cottage company up in Alt Bay. I'm going to test the phrase holiday cottages, okay, holiday cottage, because that's what I think people are looking for. Right? There's my assumption. And once I hit go and tell it to go and get results, it goes and says, right, okay, let me just move this on bigger onto my screen. Let me just zoom in on this just a little bit so you can see it a wee bit easier. Holiday cottages. The good news is, absolutely, people do search for that. Up to 1 million searches every month in the UK. I've got my details set to the UK here. But the bit of a problem with it, I say that, I'll mention this, I'll explain it in a wee bit of detail, high competition. So I'm maybe now at the moment, my website mentions, hey, are you looking to book a holiday cottage or cottages, blah, blah, blah. But maybe there are alternative or better or different keywords I should also be using or should be using in place of holiday cottages. And Keyword Planner suggests lots of other things to me. So what about, there we go, straight away in with the hot tubs. Hot tubs right now, I do not know why, but they are searched for, they are massively in demand. Lodges with hot tubs, well, maybe I'm not a lodge, so I couldn't quite use it. But look further down, cottages with hot tubs is also being searched for. Not quite in the same volume, but clearly anything with a hot tub is of interest right now. So I maybe think about, well, there's up to 100,000 searches for the phrase holiday lettings. Do I do that? Could I call myself that? Should I be changing the words and language I use? Up to 100,000 searches for people searching for dog-friendly cottages. That kind of number, I guarantee you, has gone up over the last year. Why? Customer behavior. Way more people purchased dogs during the last year of COVID, etc. Therefore, now need more need for dog-friendly cottages, hotels, places to stay, etc. So the point is, you've started with a gut feeling. It's confirming the kind of volume of searches that happen, giving you a wee hint at how competitive it's going to be to rank for some of these things. In an ideal world, what we are looking for is keyword suggestions which have high search volume and lower medium competition. Now, the reality is, without kind of giving the game away here, now more than ever, years ago, much easier, now more than ever, most things are in high or medium competition. Very rarely will you see a low, and usually it's for a term which is rarely searched for. That's just the volume of people now on Google more than ever before. So you start with a keyword, it gives you loads of other things to consider. Again, I am not telling you just to go and grab every word on the screen and stick it on your website. Okay, this is about you making conscious strategic decisions. Could you use some of these things? Should you try and introduce some of these words and phrases to your website because you are indeed about that topic, that word, that location, that thing? You do indeed have hot tubs and you've not actually thought about mentioning them, prominently on your homepage or on the details or whatever. So Keyword Planner is just a lovely way of doing exactly that. What you can also do with Keyword Planner, and I'll just kind of show you this, mention this, I won't spend the time showing you. You can also discover new keywords by starting with an existing website. So if I wanted to go and, if I was a brand new paddleboarding company, and I wanted to go and see what the other paddleboarding companies were better optimized for than me, you can just stick in a whole website in there, and it will go and analyze their content, show you roughly what volume of searches for some of those words and phrases on that website are actually potentially getting, as well as take that content as the starting point for here's a whole load of other stuff you might want to consider, relevant related topics, products, locations, etc. So Google Keyword Planner is pretty much considered a bit of an industry tool, you know, the kind of standard for keyword research. It's from Google themselves, from Google's mouth. Here are words, volume, etc. Another tool which you might want to look at, again, I'm just going to keep this nice and brief. I'll bring it up. I won't actually show you it in any great detail. Is a tool called Ubersuggest. Now, what Ubersuggest looks like, if I just show you this live, is this. Notice you do need to have an account with it, so I'll just quickly click on sign in, and I'll sign in with my Google account. Bear with me, should have done this in advance, my apologies. And once you're there, you can start tracking your own website for particular keywords, etc. for free. You can also use the keyword analyzer, which is very similar to what I just showed you on Google Keyword Planner. Now, the challenge with Google Keyword Planner, as I mentioned, you need a credit card, you need an account with them, you don't actually need to run any adverts, but it can be a wee bit clunky to get set up. Ubersuggest does very similar things. You start off with a keyword suggestion, you type it in, it gives you the volume, the alternatives, how competitive the phrase is. Again, it's just you trying out certain words and seeing what else it suggests. Very, very similar to Keyword Planner, but completely free. Now, I say that it's one of these freemium tools. They'll give you a good few searches for free. If you want to use it extensively today, and I'm always a little bit wary about using it during a live demo because I've probably used it already that day, it will usually flag up, Gary, you've used your free searches, you cheapskate, pay for an account, which I never do. I just keep waiting for it to time out and give me additional free searches. So Ubersuggest, definitely one worth trying. Google Search Console, I'm not going to talk about in too much detail. I know, having seen the presentation, I know that Brian Tate in previous session around analytics has talked about Search Console. Search Console is very much about Google telling you, proving to you which keywords are already being used to find you. So it's not actually researching what you could be using, it's about confirming what keywords are currently driving traffic to you. That's really good to know. Hopefully it's the right keywords. If it's the wrong keywords, at least you're aware, you can tweak, you can change, you can make it better. You can be surprised by some of the things driving your traffic if you didn't know about them. That's what Search Console will give you. Because that was certainly mentioned and demonstrated in a previous webinar, I won't waste your time with that again today. Go and look at some of these earlier webinars, one on analytics in particular. One I want to show you, and again, I know that you have already been introduced to it, but I love it. One of my favorite keyword research tools is a tool called Google Trends. It is so simple. It's so simple that what I'm actually going to do is type it into the chat box for you. And if you want, while I'm talking to you right now, you can play with it yourself. Google Trends. First thing you could do is just scroll down Google Trends and start to see some of the currently trending topics on Google. Sorry, I nearly said on social media there, but of course it's not, as Google. It's what, and weirdly, and I don't know why these are trending right now. Craig David and Susanna Reid and Paris Hilton and Flora Duffy. I think Flora Duffy was is one of the Olympics stars. So it will show you kind of current trend, kind of trending big topics, and some things, there's some interesting things in there just to give you an overview. What is the world talking about? What is the world searching for? But how I like to use it is I call it my keyword thesaurus. Okay, so I use it to work out how to say something. If I'm going to say something on my website and there could be an optional different way of saying it, I want to use the way of saying it which gives me the best possible return, i.e. the most people searching for it. So let me quickly give you a demo on this, and it's daft and silly. If I'm currently a travel agency, daft and silly, but play along. I realise very few of you will be. If I'm searching for it might help if I spell it right, foreign holiday. Is MD right now in the UK looking for foreign holidays? The reality is they are. So here's the last 12 months kind of search volume of foreign holidays. Listen, let me go back to the last 5 years, because again, one of the beauty of Google Trends is is the historical and changing nature. You can find out in real time, you can find out what used to happen. So if I'm trying to optimize my website to sell my foreign holidays, then good news is that there is certainly some interest. But if I'm maybe searching for, I wonder if more people right now are searching for holiday at home. Well, of course they are, aren't they, due to this COVID thing? And look at this, almost, let's just say double the volume of searches on Google for holiday at home compared to foreign holiday. So if I've got an option for which one I should be talking about more right now, if I can tweak and change my website to contain the right words based on current user behavior, then maybe I should certainly be mentioning my opportunities to holiday at home more. And actually, once I've realized that, then you can start to go, well, actually, what's the right word to use for holiday at home? And here's my if you are not, there we go, look at the growth of that. Hopefully you can see it over the last 5 years. If I narrow this down to just the last 12 months, just to show you this even, there we go. Staycation. If you are indeed a business which you know will be attracting people who are looking for staycations, holidaying at home, activities to do near them, because there is no foreign travel right now. Okay, it's opening back up, thankfully. But if you know that, well, okay, previously I mentioned this, but now I need to mention staycation. Now I need to mention holiday at home. You need to adapt your website. Your website is something which isn't done and dusted and then finished. It should always be up to date. It should always be changing. It should always be relevant to what customers are looking for. So there we go. Again, let me just, I'm guessing that, you know, the word staycation outperforms the phrase holiday at home by, you know, let's just say 10 times as much, something similar to that ratio. So if you are indeed providing staycations, but weirdly not saying the word staycation, you're missing an easy trick. It's such an easy win. Again, without being too critical to them, if you're providing paddleboarding activities and you call it SUP and not paddleboarding, the chances are you're missing an easy trick. It's about the right words to attract the right people. Okay, what did the people search for? Those are the words and phrases you start to need to use. Again, I hope this all makes sense. Let me very quickly, because it makes me laugh, let me quickly show you, not exactly relevant to the world of tourism or travel or whatever, but I'd like to show this demo. If I was a hair care business and prior, over the last few years, we are maybe very much focusing on our hair straighteners because they're the product that give us the biggest return on investment. They're the products we make the most profit from. And over the last 5 years, well, loads of folk are indeed searching for hair straighteners. Look at the spike every year. That's the Christmas, by the way. That's the gift market. Again, understanding user behavior. Maybe what I should have done at the kind of middle to end of March 2020 is actually starting mentioning hair clippers, because again, the data doesn't lie. At the start of the pandemic, everyone started looking for hair clippers as they realized, what do you mean no trips to the hairdressers? What am I going to do? And hair clippers became like gold dust. Anyway, just a fun, silly example. Use Google Trends, play with it, get the right words, you know, base some of your words and keywords and the way you describe things on, base it on the actual keywords people are using. It's not rocket science, it's not difficult, it's just clever use of these free tools which are there for you. There's other tools like keyword density tools, whereby it actually counts the words on your page. Remember earlier on when I just did Control F and I started searching in individual words to see how many times they were mentioned. If you want to do that quicker, simple, easier, use what's called a density tool. A density tool is simply analyzing all of the content on any page. It could be yours, it could be your competitors. That's often how I'll advocate you use them. Go and look at your competitors. What words do they talk about the most? And that can give you ideas. You might realize, well, wow, they mentioned Scotland 8 times on their homepage. I only mention it once. That in theory means that they will probably be a little bit more keyword authoritative for that word than me. Now, it's not about just stuffing in the word. It's not about them saying multiple times. When I use phrases like keyword density, I don't just mean keep saying it. I mean, say the important words a little bit more. Don't stuff them in. Don't try and get them crammed in. Density tools allow you to do a little bit of that. And the last tool, which again, I think you may have had introduced to you, I think it was maybe Rennie introduced this one to you when he was talking about ideas for content for your social media. This one's called Answer the Public. And again, it's a fun tool. You should definitely have a play with it. You basically stick in a word or a phrase, and it gives you the actual questions people are asking about that thing. So you know, how I would use it regularly, you know, my business specializes in digital and social media training, so I want to know what people are actually asking about social media. So a quick search in Answer the Public, and you get all of these wonderful questions. You know, things like will social media go away? Is social media bad? Can social media cause anxiety? Why is social media banned in China? Etc. etc. And all of this is ideas for content for me. You know, maybe things like blog posts. We'll come back to that right at the end today. Maybe this is ideas for social media. Maybe this is just, you know, if these are important, if I am actually about some of these things, again, it gives me just a steer on the words, the phrases, the what is the customer's behavior right now? What do they want to find out? What answers do they need? And these are simple free research tools that will allow you to do all of that and more. So again, as I said to you, that was just a quick demo of them all. There are slides in this presentation. I won't spend time on them just now, which basically walks you through how to use all of these tools, how to kind of, you know, what to expect from them, how to go and kind of consider using them better. The point is, go and do some keyword research. 77% of you said, no, we don't do keyword research. You absolutely need to increase business on your website. So
Gary, I'll just come in there with a quick question.
Please.
On the stuff you've been discussing. Somebody's asked a question that relates to what you've just been discussing around plugins, and they've said, does Gary recommend, or would he recommend plugins like Yoast SEO for WordPress? Would they offer sensible advice, something like that?
Absolutely. Okay, so quite simple, easy answer to this one, especially because the person has asked specifically about Yoast for WordPress. WordPress is a content management system. It's the system I use for my own website. It's a very good content management system. What you can do is make it even better with plugins, etc. And Yoast is indeed the SEO plugin that I use myself. Now, there are many SEO plugins. There are many kind of additional things you could do and choose. For me, Yoast is kind of almost the industry standard. It allows me great control over, as we will come to right now, it's almost like this question was perfectly timed because I'm about to go into this, you know, how to make tweaks and changes to certain parts of my website. Yoast will give you some of that capability, as well as trying to evaluate it and score it and kind of give you almost a kind of red, amber, green. Are you doing this well? Is it okay, or is this a warning? So Yoast as a plugin for WordPress is great. So again, hopefully that specifically answers that one. Listen, let me move on and take that whole question a little bit further, because the point is, up until now, it's all about working out where those what those words and phrases were. And once we work it out through our keyword research, and we suddenly realise, I don't mention Scotland enough. I don't mention paddleboarding. I'm not promoting my my hair curlers, my clippers. Goodness me, this is why I'm not a hairdresser, by the way, people. Once I've realised what I'm not using, we then go and use them on the website. And I'm going to summarize this entire section. I'm going to give you the detail as well, don't worry, but I'm going to summarize this entire section by saying, in principle, it's simply about getting them onto your website. Okay, but we're going to talk about the where and the how. So let's start with what I call
Gary, on that note though, somebody has a very good question that somebody's mentioned it, and they've mentioned it with specifically related to their own website, but actually the wider point stands. If you've got keywords added to your website, but in the process of adding them, there have been mistakes made. For example, a spelling mistake, and yep. The developer says is put, in this particular case, it's mentioned the developer has put the area where the business is located, but they spelt the area wrongly, and that's now affected the rankings. Yep. You know, there's the obvious response there, well, get the developer to fix it, but how else can that be sorted, basically?
So the point is, Google is constantly browsing the entire internet and indexing it. Now, next week I'll talk about actually it's not doing that, and there's some fundamental things we definitely need to check, and we can increase Google's, you know, indexing the timescales coming back to your web. Anyway, any tweaks and changes you make because you feel you need to make them, or your developer needs to make them, or there's a spelling mistake, or you want to, you know, change your entire content because you've just realized it's in no way keyword optimized. The good news is you can still make all of those changes. Google will come back and recognize the changes, and that's what Google is looking for. Google, when it revisits your website, wants to see changes. Now, rarely is that little minor tweaks and changes to spelling mistakes, etc. More that is about actual new fresh content, but any tweak or change to your website, Google will re-index it, reprioritize what you're about, kind of categorize you, establishing authority, etc. So don't worry about how badly or wrongly or incorrectly or spelling mistakes or anything like that is right now. It's all an ongoing dynamic process. Okay, and again, it's just about, you know, the awareness as to what you need to change is the important part. Then we get on and change it. So I want to talk about the three kind of very visible aspects that appear in a Google results page. So on a Google results page, when you search for anything, now I've just kind of mocked this up a little bit to give me a whole load of business gateway type results, but any Google results page gives you three things. It gives you the title, so these big words in blue or purple if you've clicked on them. It gives you the meta description, often in the industry what we call the snippet, which is the little bit of grey text underneath the title, and it gives you the page URL or the web address. So for everything returned in Google, you've got a web address, a big title, and a snippet of information. Those three things you need to work out how to edit. You need to work out how to change, especially if you haven't done, by your own admission, much search engine optimization. The title, the description, and the URL. And one of the things I'll say now, and we'll get to it later on, if you are just going to focus on one or two things after today, and that's absolutely fine because we're giving you a lot today, I know that, the title is the one to focus on. And of course, I'll give you my aid memoir. As I say, I give you these silly, I make myself look silly so that you will become better businesses. The title is vital. Dead easy to remember, folks, come on. So what do we mean by the title? We mean the thing that appears in the browser tab. I'll get to that in a minute. So how do we edit these things? Again, how long's a piece of string? You might be using WordPress as per the question just asked. My advice would be install the Yoast plugin. You now have capability to edit your page titles, your meta descriptions, your actual web addresses of individual pages. So if you've currently got a paddleboarding page, which is currently at mydomainname.com/page4, you want to be changing that to mydomainname.com/paddleboarding lessons for beginners, if that's what it specializes in, i.e. more keywords in the actual web addresses of individual pages, typically all done via your content management system. If your homepage title simply says the word home, you want to change your homepage title to be paddleboarding in Loch Lomond for all levels. I'm making this up. I'll cover all of this again in just a wee bit of detail in just a second. How you make some of these changes, this is just a bit of a steer for some of you. It certainly won't be all of you. If you're using WordPress, Wix, Weebly, or Squarespace, the links are on this particular slide. Go and grab these slides later on, as we said you can do, and again, go and work out how to optimize these kind of almost technical component parts of your website. Let's move on. As I say, I can't kind of give you every advice because there's a million and one ways to build a website. And some of you, as per earlier chat, may just be a case of phoning up your web developer, lucky you, and saying, hey, you know, I've just been on an SEO workshop and our web addresses aren't exactly optimized. Our titles aren't exactly optimized. Our metadata, our meta description isn't exactly optimized. So let's talk about the things that make the biggest difference. Let's talk about the title and the page content. Now this slide is a little bit wordy. We've left it in so that when you go back and look at it, it gives you a wee bit more detail. But the two main things to focus on when it comes to changing your site, notice, remember we called this on-page SEO. The changes you can make on the pages themselves, the most important one is the title. Then beyond that, it's the content, what we call the body text, the words, the stuff which simply is visible when anybody is looking at your individual pages. Now, again, there's loads of detailed links and guides and so on throughout the presentation, which if you really get into your SEO, you will certainly want to be going and looking at a little bit more. Let me take this slide and just bring it to life with an example. Now, here is one of my pages, one of our blog posts on the NS Design website, and a few things I want to raise. This is a page which is all around social media marketing trends in 2021, and few things to flag up. First of all, the title. Again, a little reminder about what I mean by the title. It's a thing in the browser tab. Now, often the title won't be overly visible because it's quite difficult to see. You need to kind of hang over, you need to kind of mouse over the title, and then it kind of pops up. The title should be keyword rich. It should be descriptive. It should be about what this page, or if it's the home page, what your business is about. What it shouldn't be is the word home. What it shouldn't be is just the name of your business. What it shouldn't be is blank. And believe me, some titles are blank, because if Google, as I've said, title is vital. Google arguably pays more importance to the title than any other bit of content. And if somebody searches for a word or phrase and Google can match that in some of your titles, especially the home page, arguably the home page, the most important page to get right. But of course, you've got many other pages as well. If Google can make a match with content in your title, you're off and running. Now, again, without being too critical, you know, I showed you the unicorn paddle guys earlier on. Their title is the name of their business, Unicorn Paddle. It doesn't say, you know, Unicorn Paddle specializing in paddleboarding and water sports for anybody looking to holiday in Scotland. Now, that's probably slightly too long a title, but you get the point. Make sure that when you are critiquing your own websites, you are asking yourself the question, are my titles keyword rich? Because they should be. Okay, let's move away from the title. Let's move on to what we call an H1 header. Again, this is a bit geeky, but let me mention it. Don't worry about it if this doesn't make too much sense. You can have any sort of content on your pages. When you are adding content to your pages, whether it's via WordPress or Squarespace or whatever, if you want to actually make a bit of text look like I don't want to say title, because then it'll confuse you with page title, but if you want to make a bit of text on your page look a little bit like a header, a title, bold, bigger, then you could just select it and click the make bold button, or you could actually choose header functionality. This is basically marking up your content, telling Google in the code this is a header, and in this case it's an H1, the most important header, and Google prioritizes headers. Now again, typically this is done in your content management system, whereby you just select a little bit of text, you look for the button that says add a header tag, or it might even say H1 or H2. There'll be different ways of doing it depending on which system you're using, but the point is, once you apply that, usually it styles it a bit different, it looks a bit different. More to the point, in the code, it's signaling to Google this is a header, the content within it is important. So my point to you today is, if you're going to do headers, and you should, make sure they're keyword friendly. Don't have the phrase about us as a header. Nothing in it. There's no keywords in that. Instead have, you know, Scotland's premier paddleboarding company as your header. What have you got? You've got the word Scotland in there. You've got the phrase paddleboarding in there. The header content gets indexed and prioritized by Google. So you want to make sure you are looking at headers. What else have we? The page, we've simply got the rest of the text, what we will often call just the body of the content, body text. So this is simply the words that people will read on any of your pages. Now again, I've hinted at this so many times already, you want to make sure it's containing some good keyword rich words. So instead of saying, hi everyone, we are NS Design, we've been going 22 years, we're a family run business, we love what we do, and I haven't actually told you anything about what it is we do yet, and I certainly haven't included any keywords that you have probably searched for to try and find us. It's waffle, it's fluff. Now there's nothing wrong with waffle and fluff as long as you remind yourself to go in and edit, tweak and change. How can you get the most important words and phrases, having done your research? How can you start with, hi, you know, we're a Glasgow company, we're a Scotland company, we base most of our work in the Scottish Highlands. Now guess what, you might not ever call your general area the Scottish Highlands, but I guarantee some of your foreign tourists do. So how are you going to start making more little matches of important keywords? You simply tweak and edit and rewrite your body text. Rarely do I ever, when I'm working one-to-one with a client, suggest that they completely start from scratch. It's usually about just interjecting cleverly, rewriting a little bit, tweaking and changing, and getting important words in there, so that if and when you go and do a density check, I know I didn't demonstrate this earlier on, but if I simply go and start counting the words, you'll start to see the most important, relevant, obvious keyword type words appearing higher in the density check. They are simply said more. They are said more than some of the other fluff. I hope that all makes sense. Other things, and if you get to this stage, goodness me, you are really doing some kind of good detailed on-page optimization. Links, now of course your website will have links on it, it will have a navigation structure, it will probably have links in paragraphs of text whereby you say, hey, if you'd like to read our latest news, click here. If you'd like to see what availability we have for booking your accommodation in the Highlands, click here. Now, my top tip for you is never use things like click here. Never use things like more info as the clickable thing that is the link. Links should be descriptive. Now, my own example here is maybe not the best, but you know, if I have a link on my hotel website that says click here to check booking, don't have the click here being the actual only clickable bit of it. Instead, maybe say, hey, you can easily check our online booking system, or check our hotel room reservation, and the actual link has keywords in it. It's got this, it's got some of the words that actually might have been used in the search in the first place. Google likes descriptive links, not kind of dull, boring, generic links. Always think keyword first. Where can I put my keywords? How can I get more of them onto this page in the right places? It's not a case of spamming them in. It's thinking strategically so that I increase the volume a little bit in the right places. One of the last places to consider is images. I guarantee many of you have images, have websites which are kind of highly image driven. An awful lot of websites in the world of tourism and travel, destination, you know, it will contain beautiful images, I assume, of your products, your services, your location, the countryside, the scenery, Scotland. Don't just have images on a website, have images which also in the underlying code have what's called the alt tags on them. We'll come back a wee bit more next week and talk about this. Basically, an alt tag is a text description of your image. Google can't really understand what the image is unless you give it the text alongside it. Alongside it, usually hidden in the code. The customer doesn't see it, but Google reads it. And again, that's usually done via your content management system of choice, whether that's WordPress or whatever. As you're adding an image, it usually gives you a chance to add in a text description as well. Okay, so those are some of the places to start applying all of your keyword research, all of your thinking, all of your clever working things out, etc. A little bit of a recap. How to increase your chances of being returned. Descriptive, meaningful titles. Stay away from the name of your business. Stay away from the homepage. I guarantee some of your content management systems you're using right now, because you haven't really kind of dug a little bit deeper, by default will be spitting out very bad page titles for you. Or you've created an About Us page, we will give it a page title of About Us instead of About Us, the most, you know, the best Scottish paddleboarding company. You can override the defaults if that's what they are creating. Nearly every good content management system allows you to do that. If you're hand coding websites from scratch, I doubt many of you will be. You should be optimizing and changing your title tags. Okay. Headers, what about those H1, H2, H3 headers I was mentioning? Again, a wee bit geeky, but just understand that if you have a header on your page, the content within it, Google is looking at with intent. It's looking at it a little bit more importantly than other stuff on there. Body text, let's just make sure that the most relevant keywords are there multiple times, not so much to the extent that you are saying, hi, we're a Scottish hotel. If you're looking for a Scottish hotel, we're a hotel in Scotland. We're the best Scottish hotel in Scotland. And if you're looking to book a Scottish hotel, we're the Scottish hotel for you. Don't do that. You know, that just sounds spammy. If I land here, it looks dreadful. It's going to put me off straight away. But also, Google will begin to spot, no, wait a minute, you're saying this too much. It's a bit spammy. That's not natural. You want natural, well-written content where the keywords are strategically weaved through so that without being obvious, they are said more than other words, but you wouldn't know it. It's just well written, well constructed titles, alt tags, descriptive headings, titles, etc. Again, if you are just using images or video, be careful. Those things usually don't include text. Google like text, so make sure all your important information is conveyed via text. That could be as simple as alt tags on your images or audio transcripts on your videos. So that's just a quick recap. Again, I could recap all of that just by saying get more of the important words and phrases on to your website. Now, one of the ways you might want to do this, we're nearly done, we've got maybe 5 minutes left, still time for Q&A before the 1 p.m. finish. Next, quick blog for all of you, and it's dead simple. It's just a yes/no question. What do you blog about is almost rhetorical. The point is to get you thinking about what do you blog about. So if we can fire up the second blog, Andrew, just out of interest, are any of you currently blogging right now? Let's just see what these results are. At the moment, I'm slightly pleasantly surprised at how many of you are indeed blogging. Right now it's pretty much 50-50, 50 yes, 50 no, which surprises me, but I'm delighted because clearly you have seen or understand the value of blogging. Now again, I'm not going to go into blogging in much detail today, so there we go. I think that's pretty much the results. We'll call it there. Slightly in favor of no to yes, but almost 50-50, 48 yes, 52% no. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Blogging is one of the simplest, most important things you can do to tell Google that you are worthwhile coming back to regularly. Why? Because Google loves fresh, original content, and that's usually what a blog is. Now, blogs are also fantastic, not just for Google, but for your users, for your readers, for your potential customers. Blogs can be a great way of you showcasing your expertise or your authority, because if I'm going to write a blog post on alpaca farming, you'll realize why I've gone with this example in just a second, and it's going to very much talk about the keywords alpaca farming, alpaca as a tourism attraction, how you can come and feed the alpacas, what alpacas are used for, how we harvest the wool, blah blah blah. Then goodness me, I'm demonstrating to Google, wow, well that guy's an authority on that thing, because he doesn't just have one page about it, there's regular stuff about it and recent stuff about it. A blog, if you are blogging in any sort of regularity, then you're providing Google fresh stuff to look at. It knows that you're always updating content. It will come back quicker to look at your website to get that fresh stuff, and suddenly you are going to, I almost guarantee you increase your traffic if you start blogging, and it is almost a guarantee. Roughly 50% of my web traffic comes because they're coming straight to blog content, because you can blog about whatever you want, anything and everything. You tend to say different things, attracting different people looking for those different things. Now, when you are blogging, think about keywords. Think about what is this blog about? Are people searching for it? For me, remember I demonstrated Answer the Public earlier on. That's a wonderful tool to give me ideas for blog content, because there's people looking for the answers to things. I can write blogs about those things. Kind of the one I usually reference is, still to this day, and it's been there for years. I don't know why, but I kind of do. People are searching for, why is social media banned in China? I think I kind of showed you that kind of earlier on. I wrote a blog post about why is social media banned in China. That was the title of the blog post. It obviously talks in detail about why social media is banned in China. It mentions those words and phrases a fair bit. It talks about Facebook. It talks about Western tools and how Eastern governments, etc. And that one blog post, which I wrote years ago, gets me traffic to my website every day of the week. Why? Because people are looking for it. So it's kind of evergreen content. People want to know things. What are they? Give them content, as well as occasionally blogging about topical content, things which are of reference now, topical now, maybe COVID related things, etc. So blogs will often be your most important, your most sought out, the most Google returned pages on your website. If you need more reading on blogs, I definitely look for other Business Gateway webinars, and there's a few links on the screen as well. The one example of the blog I do want to show you is a lovely organization called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, I think it's Beer Hope, and they are an alpaca farm. You can go, and the owner of the company blogs every couple of weeks, every kind of 2 to 3 weeks, and she has a really rich blog all about, you know, and it's not just the product, the service. There's a bit of behind the scenes. There's a bit of her story about giving up a kind of full-time corporate job to go and live the dream job in the Scottish borders, and the challenges of starting a business. And it's basically a diary of an alpaca trekker, as she says. But actually, what it's really doing is driving loads of awareness to her business, to her service, to her farm, which is very much partly about, you know, bringing in visitors, bringing in tourists into the kind of Scottish borders area, especially if you are already further down that journey going, I wonder if there's any alpacas I can show the kids. Believe me, you're going to find this website. The blog does a great job in really helping drive awareness and traffic. So there's just a nice wee blog I would recommend you go and look at. However, most of you, well, just less than most of you, already blogging. It's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer it, but if you want to share it in the chat for other people's benefits, please do. You know, what do you blog about? What is your topics of choice? Is it about, I urge you not to try and make it overly salesy. I urge you to make it about, you know, your passion and your love for the area. And blogs might be an occasional blog might be, you know, the 10 best things to do if you're coming to Dumfries with a family. What are you going to start attracting? People who aren't thinking about booking you, but who are thinking about going to Dumfries with the family. And Google now returning that one blog post possibly to lots and lots of people, driving awareness about you, your business, one click away from the booking button, etc. So look on blogs as a chance to talk, a chance to share content, thinking of keywords, of course, but otherwise to just very much kind of let loose and share your passion and your expertise and all the rest of it. Okay, we're pretty much done and dusted for today. We're at the final slides. My summary slide for you, and then I'll hand you back to Andrew. The basis of SEO actually isn't rocket science. It's actually about understanding customer behavior. Good businesses do that anyway, before we even talk about websites or SEO. It's about understanding your customers. What do they call your product? What do they call your service? What do they call your location? As I say, if you're trying to attract loads of American tourists looking for, you know, Scottish golf in the Highlands, then, you know, if you're in any way remotely close to or located to or associated with, you know, on the doorstep of a golf course in Alt Bay, then they're not searching for Alt Bay, they're searching for the Highlands. So how are you going to bring some of those words and phrases into your content? It's about your customers. What are they searching for? What matters to them? And what do they want from you? Remember, right now, COVID is tweaking and tailoring and adjusting those search terms, because some people are very much still including safety-related terms in their thinking. How are you addressing that? It's about taking that research and putting that content onto your website, the right places, targeting the right customers, therefore increasing organic visits. It's about doing the research. I urge you all, do some level of keyword research. Once you've done that, get those words and phrases onto your website. Focus on the title. Page title is vital, but of course the body text, the header, the alt tags, the web addresses, all the things we covered. Don't keyword stuff. Don't just stick them on and think cleverly about how you increase the volume of them. And lastly, keep it fresh. The whole concept of your website never being done. You know, it's never finished. Don't worry if there's a spelling mistake, correct it. Go today and tweak some of your homepage titles. Go today and update the About Us section because you've realized it contains no keywords. Think about updating based on trends, based on tourism behavior, that whole, have you got the word staycation on there? Because if you don't, wow, you're missing a trick right now and have been over the last few months. And maybe one of the best ways to keep it fresh, consider writing a blog, potentially easy traffic. Okay, we're done. Extra links and resources. I'll leave you with Andrew to give you a wee kind of insight as to what else is available to you, what else you should be looking at and being aware of. And I'll come back and talk to you shortly about any Q&A or any questions or any clarification.
Thank you very much, Gary. That was superb stuff. I hope everybody here has found something that's of benefit and of use, and I can see that there have been a number of questions asked, which we'll come to in just a minute, Gary. Yep. But once again, I'd just like to flag up next Wednesday's session, same time, 11:30. SEO Part 2, where Gary will be, again, delving a little bit further into the world of search engine optimization. If you want to watch this session again, it will be on our YouTube channel, Visit Scotland News YouTube channel, and it should be uploaded at some time within the next 5 to 10 working days. Our staff team here at Visit Scotland add subtitles to make it more accessible, and that takes a few days to get sorted out. But it will be added in the next within the next 5 to 10 days, I say. There's also, as I've mentioned earlier on, the free Visit Scotland digital review, which you can sign up for. That'll appear on screen as soon as we've stopped this, as soon as you leave the webinar. And if you'd like to give any feedback on today's session, then you can go to businessgatewayfeedback.com and enter the PIN 12001, and that's where you'll be able to give your feedback on today's session. And we always appreciate hearing how these sessions have been going. And then finally, you see on the screen there the handout. It's also been added to the chat, so you're able to download the slides, and you'll be sent an email at some point over the next 24 hours or so with a link to that handout as well. So, Gary, if it's okay with you, I've a few questions that have been asked by audience members. One of them, with regards to keywords, is it best or essential to have these mainly on your homepage or the main landing page, or should they be all pages of the site?
Yeah. So in principle, everything we've talked about covers all pages of your website. We should be applying the same keyword research and keyword implementation from the home page right through the kind of hierarchy of your website, right down to some recent blogs, etc. But what I'll always say is the home page is your most important one. Google would rather return your home page. It would rather return it, and especially, of course, if it gets a match on some content on your homepage. Earlier on, we introduced this concept of authority. Well, if you talk about this, if your content, is matching with the search keywords right from the start, right on your homepage, Google basically says, well, you definitely must have some authority on this thing. You talk about it right on your homepage as part of your initial offering, and that can be a challenge for some businesses, because if we do, now some of us maybe not so much, but if we do a number of things, it's hard to optimize for all of those things on the homepage. So my advice is usually, well, what are you most known for? What's the service or the product which is the one that's in demand? Out of all the water sports you deliver right now, let's just stick with the same theme from earlier on. Paddleboarding is the on-trend one, so let's try and optimize especially for the important things, knowing that we'll get optimization of some of those other keywords and services and products further down the website. You'll have a dedicated page on canoeing, so we might not try and force that onto the web page, but we'll certainly optimize the canoeing page to be all about canoeing, whereas we'll try and make sure the home page is a little bit about everything we do, making sure we mention paddleboarding, because that's one of the volume trend type topics right now. So it's about optimizing it. The way I usually describe it to boost authority, and if I just use my own example, quite silly here, if I'm really trying to get high up Google for the phrase social media or social media training, my homepage, of course, talks about social media training. It's mainly what we do. We do that and other things. A second page, within my services section, will be dedicated to social media. So there's Google saying, okay, talks about it at the start, talks about it in detail on another page, and of course the kind of the cherry on top, and he blogs about it all the time. So Google says this is the website that has authority for that thing being searched for. And if you can get to that sort of level, you're going to be doing really, really well.
Great stuff, great stuff. On the topic of blogs, somebody's put a good point about what they blog about, experiences in the area, new stuff, opening, keeping it short for guests, and using the links that are included in the blog as well, so that they can do some research for themselves as well.
Brilliant. Again, blog content should be very much for your audience, for potential new customers, even for your locals. It should just be valuable content related to you, the topic, the speciality, the subject, the location, all of which builds your authority for all those things. That sounds like some great ideas for blogs for whoever's doing that one.
And would a news section on the website be treated by Google or other search engines the same as a blog?
Pretty much. Again, never get bogged down by terminology. Don't go, oh, I don't have a blog, I have a latest news section. You've got it's the same thing. You know, typically we will often call it a blog, but you can call it latest news. You can call it Gary's random thoughts of the week. You can call it what you like. And as long as it's kind of fresh, regular content, keeping Google up to date with either opinion pieces or 10 things to do in the area or latest news, that is all kind of considered and looked at exactly the same. Fresh content, which Google loves.
Someone else has asked, in fact, there's a few questions about this, but I think we'll be covering these next week, Gary, about the importance of external websites providing links to your website.
Absolutely. Yeah, for today.
Spoiler alert.
Exactly. Don't want to give away too many spoilers for next week, but yes, today I'll just say yes, links from others, very important to your website. I'll give you the detail of that and dig a lot deeper next week.
Yeah, and then another question on using the tools that you mentioned today, using an incognito browser. Will there be different results depending on previous history, or because it's an incognito browser, it'll be
yeah, so I brought up the incognito browser just to get, again, my cue to mention it's one of the measures you can take to start getting slightly more accurate results based on what other people will see. There's no way to guarantee that Google will always tailor results to you in some shape or form. So me being incognito does not log me out of the IP address, and so it still kind of knows it's Gary from the Glasgow area, and the results, you know, Glasgow results might get a little bit more biased, etc. But it's the basics of trying to emulate what a customer will see rather than doing it logged in as yourself. Google knows it's you. You search for, you know, so if I was to log in as me and search for, you know, social media, my website's going to appear first. Now the risk there is I go, woohoo, top of Google. Yes, for me, because it knows it's me. And actually, you know, when the customers go into it, maybe it's on page 2 or 3 or 4. So always try and emulate what the customer might see, and the incognito browser is just the beginnings of that.
Brilliant. I think we've got time for one very final question, Gary. I thought it was an excellent question to end with. Question was, how can I check that new keywords added to my site are having a good effect on SEO? How long does it take for possible impacts to occur?
That is a good question, and the answer, I'm afraid, might not be the one whoever asked it is looking to hear. Google is an immediate tool in terms of searching, but it's not an immediate tool in terms of it doing its updates to what it calls its index. So if I change all of my titles today, and let's just focus on titles, because there's one that you will be able to very visibly check. If right now my title is not optimized of my homepage and I change it to, you know, paddleboarding lessons in Loch Lomond as a silly example, well, if you just start doing Google searches whereby your homepage is going to be returned in that search, you'll know if it's made the changes or not, because for a while you will just keep seeing the listing with the old title. And then all of a sudden, because it's the title which is actually returned in the results, suddenly you'll see, oh, it's clearly made the change because I'm now seeing my website on Google results with that actual new title listed. Now, the point is, it doesn't happen overnight. It rarely happens within the week. It usually takes anywhere between 2-3 weeks, even potentially a month or longer. It depends on what Google thinks of you right now. If I've already mentioned, Google will come back and look at your website on a regular basis. Well, it might not be that regular if you have not been, for example, doing fresh content or blogging, and so Google might not actually come and look at the changes for weeks. If you're already on the Google, if you're there, if you're putting up regular content, the BBC, for example, Google goes and looks at the BBC for new content every 5 milliseconds. That's how often Google visit the BBC. Like, they're looking at my website every few days. They might be looking at your website every few weeks. So it will take time, but bear with it. Have some level of checking, absolutely. And when you start to see the improvements, listen, you should know the difference because you're looking at your traffic. You should, you know, again, to hark back to the analytics side of things, the Google Search Console side of things, the things that Brian Tate would have covered, you're going to start seeing better results. That's when you know Google started to implement some of your changes.
Gary, thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for the questions today. I thought we had some excellent questions there. That's all we've got time for today, but please do join us again a week today, 11:30, for SEO Part 2 again with Gary, and we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at 11:30 next Wednesday. Until then, have a great afternoon and take care, everyone. See you later. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.